Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. Today I'm going to be making some tikka masala. So I'm going to get things started here by making some ginger garlic paste. I'm going to use about 2/3 of a head of garlic here and then approximately an equal amount in volume of ginger. I'm going to peel all this up and give it a rough chop and then throw it into my mortar and pestle with a pinch of kosher salt so that I can pulverize it into a rough paste. I'm going to use about half of this paste in my marinade for the chicken, and that's what I'm going to do next here. So I'm going to continue working on the other components for my marinade so I can get that going. So with that, I've got a lemon here that I'm going to slice in half. I'm just trying to do all of my slicing and chopping before I put raw chicken on the board. And that's what I'm going to do next. So here I have almost 4 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast. I'm going to be making a lot of food today, which is great because it keeps great in the fridge. I'm going to have tikka masala to eat for probably 3 or 4 days after this. You could obviously use dark meat chicken for this if you want to, but chicken breast was on sale at the store today, so that's what I'm going to use. And this is an application where chicken breast really is going to work well anyways, so it's going to be just fine. So I'm going to hack these up into about inch, maybe 1.5 inch sized pieces, not being too careful to get them perfect or anything like that. Mostly just getting them close enough so that they will cook reasonably evenly later and so that the chunks of meat in the end are going to be comfortable to eat in a bite or two. Cool, I've got all my chicken in the bowl now, so with that, I'm going to start building my marinade on top of it. I'm going to start with 1 lemon's worth of juice, about half of my ginger garlic paste from earlier, some garam masala. This is some pre-ground stuff that I got from the store. I'm using this for the marinade, but you'll see later I'm going to augment that with some freshly ground and toasted spices as well. Also going to add some turmeric and some red chili powder. A couple of big pinches of kosher salt. Remember, this is going to turn into at least 10 meals worth of food probably, so we can be pretty liberal with the salt there. And then finally, some yogurt. This is Greek yogurt because that's what I tend to have on hand around the house, but really any plain yogurt will do here. I'm adding probably about 3/4 of a cup of yogurt here. Not a ton, but enough to coat everything in a thick paste. Gonna give this all a good mix now. Gonna highly recommend that you do this step with your hands. Is it kind of gross? Yeah, but it'll be fine. You can wash your hands, and it's by far the most effective way to do this. So I'm gonna throw that in the fridge for a couple hours. If I had more time, I would probably do it for longer, but I got a couple hours to marinate it today, so that should be fine. You can probably do it up to overnight, so long as you don't go too crazy with the lemon juice. The acid in there could have a negative effect if you leave it too long, but there wasn't too much in there, so it should be fine. For now, I'm gonna toast and grind some whole spices that I have to make my own garam masala that I'm gonna use later. I'm gonna start with about equal parts of cumin and coriander seeds. Next, I'm going to do a few green cardamom pods, some black peppercorns, some fenugreek, and then finally a few cloves. I'm going in with just maybe like 5 cloves there. Cloves are really strong and have the ability to overpower things really quickly, so I go pretty light with that. I'm going to toast these spices until I can just barely see faint wisps of smoke coming off of them. You can't really see it on camera, but I can see it in real life. Once I see those, I'm going to put them into my mortar and pestle to grind them up, and then I'm just going to put them aside, save them for later. So it's been a couple hours now, and I'm ready to start cooking. So I got my Dutch oven out. The first thing I'm going to put in is probably about 3 tablespoons of ghee. And then I'm going to follow that with some whole cumin seeds, a few cardamom pods, and then 3 whole dried chilies. I'm going to set those on a medium-high heat, and then I'm going to go ahead and start chopping up a couple red onions. I'm gonna get these onions into about a 1/2-inch dice. They're all gonna get blended up later, so I'm not gonna be too worried about getting them super fine right now or anything. My spices and chilies are toasting up nicely now, so I'm gonna go ahead and put my red onions in the pot. I'm not gonna put anything else in the pot for now. I wanna get some good color on these onions before I do anything else, so I'm gonna let these go for a little while on their own. I am gonna go ahead and prep a couple serrano peppers that I have here. I'm gonna scoop the seeds and ribs out of these. There's gonna be a lot of spicy things that are gonna go into this dish, so I don't necessarily want the variable spice that I could potentially get from all the ribs and seeds there, so I'm just gonna pull them out. I'm also going to prep some cilantro. I'm going to be using this whole head, including the stems, which you'll see later. So I'm going to make sure I give everything here a good rinse. I added a few bay leaves to the pot, and here I'm just checking in on my onions to see how much color I'm getting. Still definitely want a good amount more color on those, so I'm going to let them go for a little while longer. Since the onions are getting closer to where I want them, I'm going to go ahead and throw these serranos in now as well. The chilies are starting to get pretty dark, so I'm going to go ahead and take those out now, and I'm going to put them on some cheesecloth with the cilantro stems that I'm going to tie up later and put into the tomato gravy as it cooks. The onions have some pretty good color on them now, so I'm going to go ahead and put in some other aromatics so that they have a chance to toast in the hot fat. So I'm going to go in with my reserve ginger and garlic paste that I had from earlier, and then I'm also going to put in some of my freshly toasted and ground garam masala. Alright, that's looking good, so I'm going to pull out the bay leaves as well and wrap those up. And in goes a 28-ounce can of whole tomatoes. That one had the skin on it still. Get rid of that. That's gross. And then I'm going to add about half a can of water to start with. You can adjust the consistency of this later if you need to. I'm going to do my best to crush those tomatoes up a little bit with my wooden spatula. But again, I'm going to blend this later, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. Now I'm going to add some dried curry leaves. And I'm also going to tie up my aromatics here in my cheesecloth and throw that in. This is just going to make it way easier later, so I don't have to go fishing around for inedible things. So I'm going to round things out here with a few more spices. I'm going to start with a pretty good pinch of kosher salt, and then a little bit more of my fresh garam masala. And then I'm going to add a little bit more turmeric, and a little bit more red chili powder. So that's it for now for the gravy. I'm just going to let that simmer for a while. In the meanwhile, I'm going to turn my attention back to the chicken. I'm going to get this on a sheet tray, and then I'm going to toss it with a little bit of oil. I probably should have added a little bit of oil to the marinade earlier, but I forgot, so I'm going to add it now. And then I'm going to slide this tray under the broiler set to high. My broiler element kind of runs front to back down the center of my oven, so that's why I'm putting the tray in this way. If you have a normal broiler, you can put your tray in horizontally. I'm doing my chicken under the broiler because I want to get a good amount of char on it, and this is kind of just the most efficient way to do that in a home kitchen. And then I'm going to check on it every few minutes or so. You're going to see a lot of liquid is going to pool out of the chicken, but that's okay. As long as the top side of the chicken is relatively dry, it's going to brown nicely. I'm just going to give it a stir every once in a while so that I can get it nice and charred on a few sides as it continues to cook. At this point, I know that the chicken just has a few more minutes to go, so I'm going to go ahead and finish my tomato gravy. I'm going to remove my little sash of aromatics, and I'm going to make sure to squeeze out any juices clinging to that. And now it's time to blend this up. You could transfer all of this to a countertop blender if you wanted to. I don't find that I like this anymore if I get it super smooth, so I'm just going to go ahead and do it in the pot with a hand blender. If you do it this way, make sure that when you turn the blender on, the head is completely submerged under the liquid, or you can do what I'm doing here and burn yourself and make a huge mess. The chicken's got plenty of good color on it now, so I'm gonna go ahead and take that out and set it aside while I add the last couple ingredients to my gravy. I'm gonna melt in about 2 or 3 tablespoons more of butter, and then some half and half. Normally you would use cream for this, but I had half and half on hand, so that's what I'm gonna use. I go pretty light with the half and half, and I don't really ever measure it. I kind of just add enough to where I feel like the color is right. The color of tikka masala should be a pretty vibrant red-orange color, and once I achieve that, I know I've added enough dairy. That looks pretty good to me there, so I'm gonna add the chicken and all of the juices from the tray into the pot now. And that's it. Just gonna stir this up to combine, and then I'm gonna go ahead and plate this up. I'm gonna start with some rice that I had cooked earlier. This is just some short grain white rice. Normally you would serve this with a basmati rice, but this is what I had on hand, so it'll do. Gonna follow that with a generous portion of our tikka masala here with plenty of that tomato gravy. And then to garnish, a whole bunch of those cilantro leaves from earlier. And there you go. Homemade tikka masala, the easiest and best way I know how to make. There are quite a few steps involved in making this, but it's pretty easy to put together, all things considered. It's inexpensive, and it's gonna make enough food to get you through at least half the week. So hopefully you give it a try sometime. Let me know how it goes. Thanks.